Biggest lesson, to really be able to support somebody, you really need to get to know them, and you have to understand their abilities within the disability.
Yeah.
You know, whatever they can do, you need to promote that, encourage them. Yeah. So it's always just getting to know someone. Yeah.
Yes, there has been challenges. You can't say that there's not challenges. Disability can be challenging, but I think it depends on the individual themselves. Everybody's so different and unique. You just have to figure it out and work with them, really. I think it takes a very special kind of person to be able to but have an input in someone's life when they have a disability.
A lot. It's very different in real life. You're dealing with people that, aren't just going to sit still while you're hoisting someone. They've got needs and they've got challenges. So yeah, you learn that you have to, think quickly and react quickly and adapt. But I learnt a lot more in regards to medications as well in my placement. I learnt a lot about what the medications are. Feeds, you're feeding someone through a peg feed, but you have to stop and think about that timing. Medications between food, like they have to be off and on. So many things, yeah.
Yeah, look, I think there was a quote, and it might have been Annette had said it, or someone had said it, that if you've met someone with autism, then you've only met one person with autism. So in other words, the more experience that you have working with people in the industry, particularly with autism or other, you get more experience. So from my point of view, there would have been a lot that I did learn, because it was just being involved with more people and seeing them in a different setting. So my volunteering in the past had been just quite single focused, meaning it was part of a golf program for adults with a disability. So this was not about golf. This was in a different environment altogether. So to see people in that environment, I learned a lot, which was terrific.
Oh, that's easy. Just seeing the clients smile, have fun, be happy, achieving their goals. You just go home with a smile on your face. It's wonderful. And you'll know inside of you if this is your calling, and every day is different. You never wake up going, oh, today is going to be this, this and this, because you're dealing with people and you'll see fantastic moments. You'll also be there to support them maybe in some times that, they need you to lean on a shoulder. And it's just great. Like, you just can't stop smiling when you're dealing with these beautiful people who are so happy that you're there, and if it's 30 minutes, you've made a difference to them. So it's a great calling.
The highlight, I work with the young kids, probably my highlight, and that actually confirmed me that's what I want to do the rest of my life, been working with all the young children who need help and they're just happy. I do learn different. In the classroom, it's more watch and learn, but in that placement, I'm more real life experience. I get to feel nervous for real, and I get to cope with a lot of situations not happen in the class. I think class is more give you a little bit knowledge, but the placement give you actual experience.
Yes, not everything's in a book.
No differences from the theory. Like, the theory is great to start you on, and then you would see how it complemented the practical side of the work you were doing. So you were there just doing your thing and you're like, oh, that's right, we learnt this in the classroom. So yeah, definitely no differences, it just all worked together.
So a student can do as much study and reading as they like, but nothing prepares you for working in the industry and having to use your strategies and your skills to develop those lovely relationships with people with a disability. And I think you need to immerse yourself and have a full understanding of what this job is all about.
Practice. Yeah, there always is going to be, because, you know, and coming back from a learning background myself, that you can, we'd always say that you can have the best, you know, modules set out, etc., but it doesn't compare to actually learning on the job. So don't get me wrong, the practical side, the online course, everything was fantastic. It was great preparation, but then when you're actually there, it's quite different again.
A lot. It's very different in real life. You're dealing with people that, you know, aren't just going to sit still while you're hoisting someone. You know, they've got needs and they've got challenges. So yeah, you learn that you have to, I don't know, think quickly and react quickly and adapt. But I learnt a lot more in regards to medications as well in my placement. I learnt a lot about what the medications are. Feeds, you're feeding someone through a peg feed, but you have to stop and think about that timing. Medications between food, like they have to be off and on. So many things, yeah.
Most suggested it would be a good idea to do the Cert 3. So from my point of view, it was partly to gain the skills required, and I think it was also credibility for me as well, particularly that I was going to have my own business. I thought that the credibility to say that I've actually not only decided to go down that path and I've had some experience, but I've also had the training, the relevant training as well.
I'm looking forward to the graduation because it didn't happen last year.
Most suggested it would be a good idea to do the Cert 3. So from my point of view, it was partly to gain the skills required, and I think it was also credibility for me as well, particularly that I was going to have my own business. I thought that the credibility to say that I've actually not only decided to go down that path and I've had some experience, but I've also had the training, the relevant training as well.
I'm looking forward to the graduation because it didn't happen last year. It just happened, really. My supervisor recommended me for a position at day service, and Stephen came down and had the paperwork and asked me if I wanted to work for Big Dog, and I was really happy to do that.
So if you're doing a really good job and you're passionate about doing this role, and you're open to, in that student placement hours, learning and, you know, taking on feedback as well, you should hit the ground running and transition into support role. It's around just being open. So if you're open to doing this role and coming on board and learning about all the different disabilities, open to supporting somebody from beginning to end and what that disability might look like, then this is your calling, and you will definitely get a position. If you're not open to, you know, doing different tasks, it's sort of, you're going to minimize the amount of hours that you might potentially be able to work.
I did. I was actually employed just after I finished placement. So yeah, they were already talking to me about jobs and rosters before I had finished placement. So that was a thrill because I loved working there.
Yeah, I usually, on average, am getting about a 70% employment rate, and that's because the service providers and the organisations that we are delivering students to are willing and ready to accept them as employees, and it's a nice symbiotic relationship, you know.
Certainly my career's just changed over the time. So, you know, from student became a support worker, and then followed into service delivery manager after about maybe 18 months, I'd say. And so when I did get into that role and we were having students come through, I worked with the HR department and we decided to really fine-tune the student placement. So I drew on my experience of, what student placement looked like and how we could, improve that. And so we developed a great system.
Okay, so an orientation for an organisation, whether you're paid or unpaid, should be the same. So there should be discussions about things like code of conduct or behaviour expectations, attendance requirements, certainly a strong emphasis on work health and safety, and obligations there, and also practical tips like what to do in certain situations such as emergencies or client behaviours. I think they should be oriented to who to go to in that organisation and the locations and nature of the activities that they'll be undertaking.
We then have a orientation with them here at like the central office, and that's where we get to meet them for the first time, and go through what their placement will look like and how how many hours and what their roster may look like. We discuss a variety of different things, what their availability is, so we can roster them to a senior staff member and in a SIL arrangement or an independent client.
Yes, there was a 2-day induction where I was placed, so I did meet with various staff members at different levels, not necessarily the team leaders, the houses where I was going into, but it was a great introduction. Made me feel comfortable with the onboarding process and where I'm going, and they also in their induction covered a lot of skills and training again, so it really just reiterated and covered over a lot of what steps had sort of already given me, and just tailored it to their what's the word I'm after,
Their particular style.
yeah, their policies and procedures, I guess. Yeah.
So we did speak about that in the classroom with our trainers to make sure that we understood what boundaries we would have in that role. So you've got to realise that you're not the support worker while you're doing that student placement, and just also follow through with whatever provider that is, their policies and procedures around what they expect from you as a student. We had a student booklet that we had to complete to get signed off on to make sure we were competent in the certain areas that we were learning, and just followed lead from the buddies, like the staff members that you were there supporting with. And it was always important to also check with the client, can I do this for you? Do you mind that I, push your wheelchair or take you to the bathroom if that's, what was needed? So you'd always ask permission.
Yeah.
With my cohort, we did do the 3-day induction for Centacare. We did ours around about the middle of our placement. So we had a couple of days out, doing somebody's shift, and then we came back the following week to do our induction.
That's probably quite a good idea, because by then you've got some context to attach it
Mm-hmm.
to.
Yeah. And it was good because in the induction, obviously you can learn a little bit more about the provider, so Centacare at the time, and your roles and expectations within that company.
So at the day service, they have a induction form that the supervisor will sit down with you, run through not only your participants but how the day service works, from anything from cleaning to toileting, to different procedures like that. Just run through that, you do your checklist, and then off you go. You set up with a support worker that you kind of buddy.
Yes.
Days. You buddy with them for a couple of days, and you just learn about people and their little habits and just things like that. And then off you go. You go and do what the tasks that you're given to do, activities and things like that. Yes, it was very helpful because you do get a bit more of an in-depth look into how certain participants act. You learn about their behaviours.
We developed a great system. So now when the students come in, we would do like a group casual interview. Hi, how are you? Get to know you. What do you like to do? So then we could potentially go, oh, that sounds great. Bronwyn might be really great with X, Y, and Z client. She's great at cooking. She'll be able to help these people. So that was a really great experience to just have that general background about somebody.
For the students, they actually have direct access via mobile and email, obviously, to their trainers. So if they come across a situation that, sometimes, they'll come across quite confronting situations, and so it's more about moral support in that instance. And other times, it could be, they need an explanation of something. They're not quite sure of a process procedure. In which case we often refer them back to their buddy, but we will help contextualise that for them if they're in need.
So we definitely had the phone numbers to the training organisation, and if there was a concern or anything feedback that we had to give, we knew that we could just ring and speak to that organisation for them to follow through with that particular student.
So with the students on placement, it's my job as the trainer assessor to go out and observe them in the workplace and be there for them one-on-one. I take them off the floor occasionally and we have a little discussion about what is required assessment-wise of their duties during their placement. It's also nice to just double check and make sure that they're feeling comfortable, especially that first week. I find a lot of students are very nervous and find it very confronting to enter a workforce that they've never heard about and never worked in. So the first week I'm usually there with them as much as I can be. The first week can be extremely confronting because a lot of my students have never really met quite high care needs people or challenging people. So it's a matter of, I get a phone call or a text from a student saying, I'm struggling, and I go out and sometimes I've even given students time, a couple of days to recoup and rebuild their self-confidence again and then go back on the floor. And sometimes you just need that. You need a trainer to say, you just need to have a little rest and then come back in a day or so, and then we'll readdress it then. And the whole situation changes in a day. Yeah.
Really good support in the workplace, and in fact the head of nursing actually found out about it as well. So it sort of got the communication went up the line. So I was able to debrief with supervisor, and I was obviously debriefing with my co-worker that night, and then the head of nursing had a debrief as well, and then obviously with Annette too from STEPS. So the support around that was terrific, and there was the offer for additional support if I needed it, but I was fine.
We're always in contact while you're on placement, whether it was via email, coming out to the sites, checking in, text message even. The support was always there, and there was always that check-in in those processes to make sure that we were doing okay. Yeah.
So we will certainly make regular contact with them. It could be weekly. And just seeing how they are going, what they might find challenging, and helping them and providing them further support around how to per se deal with the situation or deal with a client.
It's enormous. It's a chance to really get hands-on experience and contextualise what they've learned. You can do all the role-plays case study scenarios that you could possibly want, but until someone's actually knocked on the door of someone with dementia who's completely forgotten who they are for that day, they don't really You know, there's some things you can discuss, but you don't know until you've experienced. And there's a whole plethora that you and I know of other things that they may come across. So it's about having the ability to contextualise that knowledge, and then, you know, potentially go back to their trainer if they need to for advice. And quite often our students will ring our trainer and sort of say, I'm dealing with this client today. I've talked to my buddy, they're suggesting X, Y, Z. Can you give me a little bit of advice? I just need a little bit more information about how I maybe handle that. I think the key learning that most of the students come back to us with is that it's, and they pick this up during the training, but it's really reinforced during the vocational placement and subsequent employment, is that this is an amazing career, and it's about focusing on the ability within the disability. There's so many incredible opportunities. One of the things that I get quite excited about is I ask my team to schedule the meetings with the students who are coming back in to sign off their placement while I'm in the office. And I don't do that because that's paperwork and, you know, I'm not very good at that. But I love talking to them and sort of saying what's happening for you and the different pathways they end up in and the different roles they end up in. And then, you know, now having been in this industry for way too long, it's exciting when you're dealing with an SDM or a manager and you kind of go, hang on, I recruited that person 8 years ago, you know, and they'd come from a mechanics background or they'd come from working at Woolworths and, you know, they wanted to reinvent their career for whatever reason, and quite often it is that. Or you see these youngsters that are coming through at 18 or 19 and now, you know, they're in senior positions in organisations, and that's incredibly rewarding. You know, I know it's exciting for them, but it's heck exciting for us too.
A great benefit, and I think one of the ones is that confirmation and validation that the course they are enrolled in is actually what they want to do. So I think that, you know, they come out and say, this is exactly what I wanted to do. I really like it. And I can really do something wonderful in this role. So that's probably the big thing. The other one is confidence. They've actually got over those nerves. They've observed different things and they've managed different things and they've learnt those skills and they've had the feedback from other paid support workers, NDIS, participants, NDIS providers to say you're doing a really good job, well done.
I think the benefits are that you figure out who you are and the type of support worker you want to be. You get to see how really great support workers are doing their job, and you also get to see, you know, how you would like to do it yourself. So personally, I think unless you've got a little bit of work experience and have seen the job in process, you are really unaware of what this industry requires from a really great support worker.
I think, as I was sort of saying, it's around just being open. So if you're open to doing this role and coming on board and learning about all the different disabilities, open to supporting somebody from beginning to end and what that disability might look like, then this is your calling and you will definitely get a position. If you're not open to, you know, doing different tasks, yeah, it's sort of, you're going to minimise the amount of hours that you might potentially be able to work. So just being open, learning, and available to do all of that.
To, you know, give it your best, to always engage with the clients and have that hands-on approach. So to always give things a go, have a real good passion for the industry, because it certainly does take certain and special people, you know, to provide care and, you know, support to a variety of different clients.
Definitely jump in 2 feet. Don't hesitate. Don't hold back. Give everything a go, because you can do it at the end of the day.
Like passion, if you knowing what you want to do in life, and this career I chose it because I want to do for other, and that's why it's willing me so much to enjoy your job every day. You wake up and do your job, a good job for yourself. I think just follow your passion and make sure you do your best again.
I think For me, the key is to choose the right training and the right facility for you, because that really does put you in the right place for placement. Everybody learns differently, and for me, that was something that Steps offered and was above all the others, was those 3 modes: the face-to-face, the practical. That for me was the biggest thing. Knowing and feeling prepared for placement was something that I would say, you know, ask the questions, get in there, have a go. We hoisted each other. I did things like getting in a hoist, getting in a bed, you know, things like that. So you actually feel what it's like to be in that sling, so you can relate to the client. So that sort of information and that exposure is so valuable, and that's what I would say to them is find that right fit and don't be afraid to ask the silly question.
I'd suggest them to definitely embrace it. So it's going to be challenging, but you want it to be challenging. So it's that old saying that you want to be comfortable being uncomfortable. You probably want to experience the, if you like, the extremes of the industry or of what work may be like, because that's what placement is all about. So obviously have fun, enjoy it, and it gives you a really good opportunity on saying, hey, well, is this really for me as well? Because I think that's really important. It's not just necessarily a tick in the box type thing, but this is part of a broader picture, and it's part of a course to prepare you to go into that industry, but it's also an opportunity to test yourself and say, well, is this something that you know I am really passionate about? And the other thing that I'd say, which I think is really important, is just to ask a million questions. So it's not just from the technical side of things, but just to ask questions of other staff to get an idea of, well, what is it like working in the industry, and what are their challenges, and how do they view things as well. So the old saying again, you know, smart people ask questions. So if you ask 100 questions, I think that's really important.